keep that in mind. Bear with me here. One more thing. So we're all learning together, and especially me, but today is Shabbat Hagadol, the Great Shabbat. And to be honest with you, I really wasn't familiar with that, but talked to Garrett and just make sure that it was kosher. Traditionally, you would read from Malachi 3, verses 4 through 24. And I'm not sure why it starts at 4 and not at the very beginning. But if it's okay, and it's going to take a while to read through this. Speaking of which, I need some water. Here it is. Oh, I put it there, didn't I? Thanks, Garrett. It's going to take a while to read through it, but it is God's Word. And just like I think we're all finding, slogging through some of this stuff where we just think this is really not that exciting and it's not that interesting. But if you just do it, it's like eating your vegetables. Hey, I feel better. This is good for me. I didn't really enjoy it as much as some other parts of the Bible at first, but I'm getting some revelation from this slowly but surely. So we'll start with Malachi, verse 1. Now, I don't think Alan, I gave that to you. So
Verse 1.
Yeah, here it is. Okay. Look, I'm sending my messenger to clear the way before me, and the Lord, whom you seek, will suddenly come to his temple. Yes, the messenger of the covenant in whom you take such delight. Look, here he comes, says Adonai Svaot, which is Lord of hosts or Lord of armies. But who can endure the day when he comes? Who can stand when he appears? For he will be like a refiner's fire, like the soap maker's lye. He will sit, testing and purifying the silver. He will purify the sons of Levi, refining them like gold and silver, so that they can bring offerings to Adonai uprightly. And then beginning the traditional reading, which is verse 4. I'm going to try some glasses here. Then the offering of Yehuda and Yerushalayim will be pleasing to Adonai, as it was in the days of old, as in the years gone by. Then I will approach you for judgment, and I will be quick to witness against sorcerers, adulterers, and perjurers, against those who take advantage of wage earners, widows, and orphans, against those who rob the foreigner of his rights. And don't fear me, says Adonai Svaot. But because I, Adonai, do not change, you sons of Yaakov will not be destroyed. Since the days of your forefathers, you have turned from my laws and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you, says Adonai Svaot. But you ask, in respect to what are we supposed to return? Can a person rob God? Yet you rob me. But you ask, how have we robbed you? In tents and voluntary contributions. A curse is on you, on your whole nation, because you robbed me. Bring the whole tenth into the storehouse, so that there will be food in my house, and put me to the test, says Adonai. See if I won't open for you the floodgates of heaven, and pour out for you a blessing far beyond your needs. For your sakes I will forbid the devourer to destroy the yield from your soil, and your vine will not lose its fruit before harvest time, says Adonai Svaot. All nations will call you happy, for you will be a land of delight, says Adonai Svaot. You have spoken strongly against me, says Adonai, yet you say, how have we spoken against you? By saying there is no point in serving God. What good is it to obey his orders or to walk about as mourners before Adonai Svaot? We consider the arrogant happy, also evildoers prosper. They put God to the test. Nevertheless, they escape. Then those who feared Adonai spoke together, and Adonai listened and heard. A record book was written in his presence for those who feared Adonai and had respect for his name. They will be mine, says Adonai Svaot. On the day when I compose my own special treasure, I will spare them as a man spares his own son who serves him. Then once again you will see the difference between the righteous and the wicked, between the person who serves God and the one that doesn't serve him. For the day is coming, burning like a furnace, when all the proud and evildoers will be stubble. The day that is coming will set them ablaze, says Adonai Tzvaot, and leaving them neither root nor branch. But to you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness will arise with healing in its wings, and you will break out, leaping like calves released from the stall. You will trample the wicked. They will be ashes under the soles of your feet on the day when I take action, says Adonai Tzvaot. Remember the Torah of Moses, or Moshe, my servant, which I enjoined on him at Horeb, laws and rulings for all Israel. Look, I will send you to Eliyahu the prophet before the coming of the great and terrible day of Adonai. He will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers. Otherwise, I will come and strike the land with complete destruction. Look, I will send you Eliyahu the prophet before the coming of the great and terrible day of Adonai. So that's Malachi, and it's pretty amazing. I can't tell you exactly how long ago this was written, but it could have been written last week. I mean, it certainly describes the human condition right now, today, and it's pretty scary when you think about all the things that are going wrong with the world and can go wrong, but on the other hand, God understands this. He recognizes us. He distinguishes the believer from the non-believer, the person that's trying to walk with God versus the person that's not. And it's not a superiority thing. It's just a protection. Hey, God understands who his children are. So, so for Messianic believers, we would also read from Matthew. And again, it's Matthew 17, 9 through 13, but I'm going to read from the beginning of the chapter through verse 13. So Matthew 17. 6 days later, Yeshua took Kepha, Yaakov, and his brother Yochanan, and led them up a high mountain privately. As they watched, he began to change form. His face shone like the sun, and his clothing became as white as light. Then they looked and saw Moshe and Eliyahu, which is Elijah, by the way, speaking with them. Kepha said to Yeshua, "It's good that we're here, Lord. I'll put up 3 shelters if you want, one for you, one for Moshe, and one for Eliyahu." While he was still speaking, a bright cloud enveloped them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son, whom I love, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the Talmudim heard this, they were so frightened that they fell face down on the ground. But Yeshua came and touched them. "Get up," he said. "Don't be afraid." So they opened their eyes and looked up and saw only Yeshua by himself. In verse 9, as they came down the mountain, Yeshua ordered them, "Don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." The Talmudim asked him, "And why did the Torah teachers say that Eliyahu must come first?" He asked, "On the one hand, Eliyahu is coming and will restore all things. On the other hand, I tell you that Eliyahu has come already, and the people did not recognize him, but did whatever they pleased to him. In the same way, the Son of Man, too, is about to suffer at their hands." Then the Talmudim understood that he was talking to them about Yochanan the Immerser. So those are the 2 readings for the Shabbat Hagadol. So this week's Parsha, Matzorah, I'm going to whine a little bit. I was really sick. As soon as the service ended Saturday, I was sick, and I really wanted to call Alan and say, "I can't do this, Alan." But really, God, I'm not saying he completely healed me yesterday, but he gave me enough strength to put something together. So, again, this may be a little disjointed, but I'm trying to slog through this information and learn myself. Again, just because I have a microphone doesn't make me qualified. So, some verses that really relate to Zara'at, or biblical leprosy. And I think, Alan, we were talking about this maybe last week at Torah Club, but the idea that Yeshua touched these very unclean people to heal them. So Matthew 9:20 through 26, a woman who had a hemorrhage for 12 years approached him from behind and touched the tzitzit on his robe. For she said to herself, if I can only touch his robe, I will be healed. Yeshua turned, saw her, and said, courage, daughter, your trust has healed you. And she was instantly healed. He didn't touch her, but she touched him, and I'm pretty sure that would have made him ritually unclean. So later, Yeshua arrived at the official's house and saw the flute players and the crowd in an uproar. He said, everybody out. The girl isn't dead. She's only sleeping. And they jeered at him. They didn't really like to hear that. In fact, this is ridiculous. She's dead. But after the people had been put outside, he entered and took hold of the girl's hand. So Yeshua says she's not dead, but everyone there would have sworn that she's dead. So he touched what? A dead person from their perspective. So again, making himself unclean. But she got up, she took the girl's hand and she got up. News of this spread throughout all the region. Again, notice that the woman touched Yeshua. He touched the little girl who was dead. And so gradually, I think we're turning our minds away from viewing being unclean as being a sinner, right? It's because can God's son be a sinner? He couldn't be, but so for him to be unclean did not mean that he had sinned in any way whatsoever. So for me, it's just a slow change. Like, okay, this is changing the way that I view things. It's starting to make more sense. Let's see. Some more verses. Mark 1, verses 40 through 45. A man afflicted with Zara'at came to Yeshua and begged him on his knees, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Moved with pity, Yeshua reached out his hand, touched him. Again, he touched him and said to him, I am willing, be cleansed. Instantly, the Zara'at left him and he was cleansed. So then, for me, transitioning to another thing, so Yeshua is touching these people, and then what are they supposed to do? Yeshua sent him away with this stern warning, see to it that you tell no one. Instead, as a testimony to the people, go and let the Kohen examine you and offer for your cleansing what Moshe commanded. So Yeshua was telling them to follow the law. Go show yourself to the priest. Sam outlined at least part of the, what are the rituals to become pure again. Yeshua was saying you need to do this. But don't tell anyone, just go do what you're supposed to do. But he went out and began spreading the news, talking freely about it, so that Yeshua could no longer enter a town openly, and stayed out in the country where people continued coming to him from all around. So again, Yeshua giving instructions to stay consistent with the law. On his way to Jerusalem, Yeshua passed along the border country between Shamron and Galil. As he entered one of the villages, 10 men afflicted with Zara'at met him. They stood at a distance and called out, Yeshua, Rabbi, have pity on us. Which, just a little side note, sometimes, it's okay to shout to God a little bit, not in anger, but say, hey, really, God, I'm here. Please hear me. We don't always have to whisper to God. And sometimes we need to get his attention, not like prophets of Baal cutting themselves and acting crazy, but it's okay to, no, God, I really mean it, So they said, Yeshua, Rabbi, have pity on us. On seeing them, he said, go and let the Kohanim examine you. As they went, they were cleansed. One of them, as soon as he noticed that he had been healed, returned shouting praises to God and fell on his face at Yeshua's feet to thank him. Now he was from Shamron, which means he was a Samaritan. So apparently this Samaritan guy got lumped in with the other guys with leprosy that were Jewish, and those two wouldn't go together. But Yeshua said, weren't 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Was no one found coming back to give glory to God except this foreigner? And to the man from Shamron, he said, get up, you may go, your trust has saved you. But again, we kind of want to bash the other 9, but they were in fact doing what Yeshua had told them to do. they knew the procedure that they needed to go to the priest. They needed to be right, family, community, tabernacle. So they were going through the process. So maybe they weren't grateful, maybe they should have been, but they might have actually just been very obedient. I think Yeshua is, given a little bit of a hard time here. So, again, I'm just sort of slogging through this, trying to come up with something amazing, of course. But let's see what else. The first, last point on that, Yeshua didn't touch these lepers. Why? Perhaps because he was on his way to Jerusalem for Pesach and wanted to remain ritually clean. So all of those scenarios are legitimate. All of them are in keeping with God's laws, his standards. So anyway, again, I'm just slogging through all this, and I just sort of had a flashback. I've been a believer since I was 15. I've been pretty lukewarm most of that time in reality, especially in terms of study. But I just sort of had a flashback that, when I would read about Yeshua healing someone and then telling him to go to the priest, my perception always was Yeshua was saying, in your face, Pharisees, look what I'm doing out here on my own. I'm really from God, and you're not really from God. You're just uptight, got big beards, wear the right clothes, playing Jewish dress up. That was just my perception as let's say, a Christian believer. You just read it and think. And I thought, well, why did I feel that way? I really, felt kind of ashamed of that thinking. Now, looking back, it's really almost anti-Semitic. It's, and then, some of the sort of things that you grow up with, slanders and slurs that people kind of throw around casually. I remember seeing a girl at a party one time. She had Star of David earrings on. And I said, oh, nice earrings. Oh, and I can't remember what I said, but basically I gave her the Christians are king of the world, and our team's winning, and you're not. I didn't say that, but you could tell. That was the attitude, just sort of that replacement theology. We're here. You had your chance. You're done. We're the best. Our team rocks, right? Team Jesus. Not really realizing that Team Jesus is all inclusive. So anyway, sort of self-analyzing. I thought, well, why do we do this? I'm not the only one that's had these experiences or had these attitudes. And I thought, well, we need a sports analogy, which is really funny to me because Sam knows this, you guys probably don't, but I'm not really into sports at all. But that's what popped in my head, and I thought, I'm thinking, I've heard a million sports analogies from the pulpit, and they usually irritate me, but I'm going to do it myself. So anyway, but yeah, I have to ask Sam usually, is that March Madness thing again? And how do the baseball leagues work? I don't care. So, thanks to the power of the internet, though, I want to introduce you to Jim Marshall. The time was October 25th, 1964. Marshall was a defensive end for the Minnesota Vikings. When he retired, he owned the career records for the most consecutive starts, with 270 games, and games played 282. When he retired, the Vikings retired his jersey, number 70. Marshall recovered 30 fumbles in his career, Marshall recovered 30 fumbles in his career, and what is this hard-charging guy famous for? For recovering a fumble. So they were playing the 49ers. Marshall recovers a fumble, and he's running 66 yards to the end zone, the wrong end zone, into the 49ers end zone, throwing the ball out of bounds, celebrating, which gave us safety for the 49ers, so they get 2 points, right? But the Vikings did manage to win. So I thought, sports analogy. And there's a little video, you can look it up. The guy is he's he's running. I mean, it's the line. He's not a lineman, but it's the lineman's dream, really. You know, like, I got the ball and I'm going to get it in the end zone. Yeah, there we go. Fumble Rooster. The point of this amazing sports analogy is that sometimes our enthusiasm gets the best of us, and also a little knowledge can be a dangerous thing. So he was doing all the right things in the wrong direction. So that goes back to the point of having this flawed view of who are the Pharisees, who are the religious leaders. Yes, Yeshua criticized them, but he was not coming to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. But it's just so natural to team up, like, hey, this is my team, I'm on Team Jesus. He said some bad things about the Pharisees, so I don't like Pharisees, and I don't like that whole system. And we don't always really, I'm still working on this, get the facts straight to really understand what we believe. So that was 20, 30 years of Christianity. I'm healed now. I've been a Messianic believer for about 10 years. So I have all this new, fresh, amazing revelation, and I'll never run the ball the wrong way again, right? So I'm cured, right? I'm a Messianic believer. So we talked about Jim Marshall. I guess another guy I want to talk about is Thomas Lancaster, who's part of FFOC. And through Beth Emanuel, he has a podcast, or any number of podcasts, and I happened to stumble on one, Easter and Passover. So, well, I'll listen to this. And it's kind of dry, but it's kind of interesting. And I'm not going to do justice, but I'm going to try to bring some of that information to the light that he talked about. But as Messianics, we often have a lot of trouble with the pagan trappings of Easter. I know a lot of the answers that the Messianic faith provided in relating to traditional holidays from the Christian perspective really appealed to me. Like, okay, this makes sense. You have an answer for sort of this watered down, adulterated expressions of the Christian faith. But surprisingly, some of what we think we know, we don't really know. So the term Easter is actually in the Bible. I don't know, were you able to get the King James Version? If you look in Acts chapter 12, 1 through 4, it won't be in your complete Jewish Bible, but most of us probably have a King James around, or just look on your phone. So, now about that time, Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church, and he killed James, the brother of John, with a sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread, which we're about to go into. Verse 4, and when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to 4 quaternarians of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter, there it is, to bring him forth to the people. So, yeah, there it is, Easter. There it is right in the Bible. What's the deal? Well, I can't tell you fully what the deal, but I'm going to try to tell you a little bit about what the deal is. Easter is an Anglo-Saxon word. Let me catch myself in my notes here. But really, instead of Easter, the Greek Pascha, which is Pesach, is what should be there. And all other, according to Lancaster, non-English, non-German, cultures that haven't been evangelized from those roots, from the Anglo-Saxon and the German, they don't use Easter, they use some version of the Greek Pascha. You can change the pronunciation slightly, but Italians and French, Pascha, it's all going to be Pesach, only in this version of the Bible, the sort of the English root of it, we see Easter. But there it is. So let's see. Where does the term Easter come from? In Anglo-Saxon, long story short, it was simply the month of April. It does tie back to the goddess Oyster, or I can't pronounce it. Nope, sorry. Well, let me go back. What about Easter and Ishtar connection? According to Lancaster, there's no real connection. And this really surprised me because I've been preaching that for years and years and years and all that. So, again, I'm not trying to present this as a perfectly thought out, perfectly documented, but Daniel Lancaster is pretty well respected. And he says, hey, Ishtar is a Babylonian fertility goddess. Long time before the Roman Empire, long time. So it's not that there aren't other fertility goddesses out there. It's not that the Anglo-Saxons didn't have fertility goddesses, but Ishtar specifically has no relation to Easter. So, and the reason I'm bringing this up is not to make myself seem so smart. It's to say, let's make sure we're running the ball in the right direction. And I encourage people to go and find that podcast and listen to it, because obviously it's going to do a much better job. Let's see. So it's the goddess Oyster. It's E-O-S-T-R-E. So the month of April for the Anglo-Saxons, that was their goddess. So yes, there are most definitely pagan roots all around that. But specifically Ishtar, according to Lancaster, is not. So the point is that we must still guard ourselves from blindly adopting everything that we hear, read, and see, even if it fits really well with our narrative, because Ishtar is the thing that fits great, dying eggs and children's blood sacrifice, all that fits. It makes for a great story. And, it worked on me, but they're not necessarily quite true. So we need to recognize that we don't have quite all the answers. It's okay to be sure that we're in fact running towards the right goal line. And the other thing the reason I want to bring it up is to be gentle with our families, because just about everybody you know is not messianic, right? So it's okay to not smash them with all the facts right off the bat. They're going to Easter Sunday service, and they're still going for the resurrection of Yeshua, right? It's not that we're saying, hey, it's okay, one's exactly the same as the other, because they're not. But it's okay just to be gentle with the people. I spent an hour and a half trying to explain Messianic Judaism to one of my coworkers. Another coworker said, your kids color? And I'm like, no, because I like to take the contrary point, obviously. She said, well, they're just rabbits. And I said, my kids know what the rabbits are about. I said, if you got something for Passover, they'd be happy to color it. So you're going to have to take a stand. You're going to have to, it's difficult, but try to explain your faith, right? And say, no, really, this is what I believe. This is what the Lord is calling me to believe and to do and to walk out. So you got to be strong on the one hand, but it's so tempting to say, I've got this new revelation. I've recovered the fumble, and I'm going to run and become famous. But we might become famous for the wrong reasons. We scored in the wrong end zone. And again, I apologize that there's not more hardcore information, but you really can go to Lancaster's podcast and at Beth Emmanuel, and he does lay it out quite nicely. He also talks about, how do we get Easter over here, Passover here? Well, it goes back to Constantine. There was a split, and I want to gently say that there's some anti-Semitic roots to the reason we have Easter and Passover not together, it wasn't just Constantine. There were a lot of religious leaders, but they kind of fell in line together because, hey, you don't really tell the king that he's wrong, right? They basically wanted to scrub all the Jewishness out of it. We don't want to turn to the Jews for the date. We're going to set an arbitrary date. It's a similar time of year, but it's based off a complete different calendar, a complete different way of getting it. It's not biblical. So again, I'm not trying to say, oh, Easter's just fine. But I guess my main point is to say, hey, let's be careful what our facts are. And like I say, this was shocking to me because I've repeated all this and more as gospel, and some of it's not. So, but the main point is really we do want to share the revelations that we have with our brothers and sisters, but to do it sweetly and gently. And I'm preaching to myself, okay? So, and to help people understand. And sometimes that takes a long time. It might take years. It may never happen. But like my mom said, when I'm telling her about this crazy Messianic Judaism many years ago, she says, well, as long as you believe in Jesus, that he died for your sins, and he was raised from the dead, and you know what, that's true. We've got to remind ourselves that we are on the same team. Sometimes we're wearing different uniforms, but we're on the same team, and let's try to love each other through it. And I just pray that God would continue to give us some legitimate revelation, that he would continue to refine us. The Messianic movement is still being defined. It doesn't mean we're wishy-washy. It just means what is truth. We want truth, right? So I think we have to even be honest with ourselves with some of the things that we've maybe just been misinformed about. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys. I hope it wasn't too disturbing. But and again, we're all learning together. I know there's some scholars in this crowd, much more qualified than me, so be gentle with me. But that's all I got for you guys.